So the way you're going to create these videos is, these are the pre-suasion ones, is first of all, fill out that beliefs mapping table, and then look at how that relates to the emotion table that I showed here, the Dan Kennedy one, this one right here, right? Because you're going to need that to write headlines. You're going to need it to write ads, all that kind of stuff for the video content. And then use each one of those points in one video. Don't try to do more than one like I'm doing here in this webinar. There's a whole bunch of concepts that I'm teaching you about. You don't want to do that in these pre-suasion videos because this is going to go to the cold audience. Keep it simple, just like Oren Klaff said. All right, so once you've mapped it to the emotions and you've got a video outline for each one of them, what you're going to do, first of all, keep it simple, like Oren Klaff said, and then 2 to 5 minutes, and then use this framework. This is a framework that I learned from Frank Kern. It's a great framework, I feel. It's kind of like, when you're in school, in high school, and they taught you how to write an essay. It's like a new, better way of doing the essay. So with an essay, you'd start with a topic or a theme and introduce your theme. Then you'd have like 3 points that backed up what your premise was in your theme or your introduction. And then you'd have a conclusion that summarized everything and proved what you said in your thesis. Whereas with these videos, what you're going to do is you're going to have a theme or a topic that you introduce. It's going to be based on their existing belief. And then you're going to tell a story that shows them a better way, a new way, a very value-based, innovative way, which is your unique way of giving them a solution to get them to their desired end result. And then you're going to tie that all together at the end with a metaphor, some quick punchy thing that they can go, oh, okay, now I get it, because it's a metaphor, they kind of understand the concept. If you look through this presentation, I use a lot of metaphors and I use a lot of imagery. So you want to do that. So topic, story, metaphor structure, very, very simple. And the purpose of that is to pre-suade them and position them in a helpful way to get them to a new belief. And I was just going to tell a little story about when I did work for GE. I worked this was like 20 years ago, and I worked during the regime of Jack Welch. If you were around back then you would know Jack Welch as one of the greatest CEOs that ever lived. The guy grew a business, he grew GE, which had 500 different businesses at the time I worked there. And so I always did the demand generation. I was never a brash, hardcore closer like some of my other, peers. So I kind of saw it as a weakness because I had to do things that took longer to get people to want to do an investment with me. And so what I used to do a lot at that time was I create new things because I knew new things, where there's mystery, there's margin. If I created new things, it would be interesting. And it would be something new that would get them to their desired end result in a very value-based, innovative way. And so I read a lot. I tried to think about, from an empathetic point of view, where my client's frame of mind was. And I tried to tap into that and understand what they needed. And I would not sell them what I had. I would create something new that would give them what they wanted and needed, if that makes sense. And so I had to create this business case because I needed about $10 million. This is 20 years ago. So $10 million was not a drop in the bucket. Still isn't today, but back then that was a lot of money. So I was asking GE to invest $10 million to create this new thing that I knew I could sell. I actually had a letter of intent from one client saying, hey, if you build this, we'll probably buy it. And so I had to create this business case. Well, it took me about 2 quarters, 8 months of time building the business case, securing that potential client that signed a letter of intent, doing all the homework and all the detail. Well, at the end of it, I had a document that was, 250, 300 pages long, business casing this whole new business concept so that I could, convince my management that this is something that they should invest $10 million of their, shareholders' money in. Invest in my idea. It was just an idea. And long story short, this information, I didn't go present it to Jack Welch, but my CFO went and he met with the other CFOs and they said, well, Jack's never going to look at this. It's way too long. You got to simplify it. So they took that and they called me and said, yeah, you got to work this out. Got to make it much, much shorter. So I created a little PowerPoint slides. I think there was 10 or 12 slides They said, nope, still too big. So they further reduced that to 1 page. By the time it got to the management committee where Jack Welch reviewed it, it was 3 lines showing the benefits of doing this, and then a little table that showed the ROI projections. Here's how much it's going to cost us. Here's how many months it's going to take to recoup. And Shane's got this letter of intent signed with a potential client. Long story short, Jack Welch made a $10 million decision based on, 3 lines of text and a little box that said when our expected, return on investment would happen. They called me up from the management meeting, and I just remember to this day, Jack had this reputation of, he only hired A players, maybe a few Bs, no Cs. So if you fell into the B or C category, you had 2 quarters to clean it up or you were gone. And I just remember him to this day saying, Shane, we're going to give you a big bag of money, so your business case is approved. I'm like, yes, no, this is like amazing. I got $10 million approved. He said, but here's the thing. You got to bring us back 3 big bags of money within 6 months or you're fired. And he really meant that. The bottom line of the story is that, you can't have too much detail when you're trying to get a new concept bought into from somebody who has this current level of belief thinking. Like, for Jack, he had a certain set of products and solutions that we sold, and that's what we were supposed to sell. Here's this sales rep coming to him with this new concept, this new idea that's going to cost them $10 million. By the way, I closed a $120 million client based on that, and it took me a little over a year to do it all. But that's the concept, keep things simple in the beginning. But it still has to be steeped with in-depth information that backs it up. All right, so go out there and create these videos, pre-suade people, get your positioning for moving their belief from the current belief to the new belief, and you're going to be demand creators. You're not going to be chasing demand anymore. All right, with that, good luck to you. If you have any questions, then message me in the group.